welcome to the channel. Today I'm just going to go through some Ortho film that I purchased a couple of weeks ago and shot it straight away. I actually shot, I think the Ortho is meant to be around 80. I think it's the Ilford Ortho 80. I shot at about 125. I've never shot Ortho before, and I figured I'd give it a go. I'd like to mention that none of this, I'm not an expert. I've only been shooting film for a few years and printing in the darkroom for a couple of years. So really this channel is more about my journey and how I'm going through it. Sort of my printing techniques, what I'm learning. If you've got any tips, any tricks, anything that you want to impart knowledge, stick them in the comments below. If you like them, please subscribe, please hit the bell, comment, let me know what you think is working, what doesn't work. Yeah, and I think I'm going to go through how I developed the roll all the way through to printing. Let's crack on. Whoa. There we go. Open. Put that lid back on. Normally when I actually use developer, and even when it's neat, I tend to use it with some cling wrap over the top, just to try and squeeze any air out and keep it out as much as possible. You can use it at 1 in 9, makes 5 litres, or you can be a bit more economical and use it at 1 in 14, which is probably what I'm going to do today. No point in wasting developer. I'm sure you can get better pictures, better shubber, but yeah, just a hobby. Now it says within this, it says to use it at for 7 minutes at 1 in 14, because I'm going to push it an extra stop, so I'm going to leave it in the developer a little bit longer. So I'm probably going to do maybe 9 minutes. Yeah, let's go with 9 minutes. The other most important thing is change bag. Change bag keeps everything dark. They're not expensive. I think I picked this one up for about £5 or £10 off online somewhere. Everyone's favourite auction site probably. It's a bit small. It's alright for this size, but yeah, don't forget the reel. That would be stupid to forget that. No. And the scissors. It just has 2 zips. Zip one way. And zip the other way. And then you can bung your hands in these holes. And supposedly it's light tight. I have noticed a couple of times if it gets a bit loose there, so if you open it up it can occasionally get small light leaks, but it's not much of an issue. It's never really been much of an issue. More likely to be a lot of my loading of the camera that's been more of an issue, or probably my camera has a few light leaks. Anyway, this bit's a bit boring, but all I'm doing is feeling my way around. I'm going to snip off the leader, preferably without cutting a hole in the bag. This press is a bit big. And then all I do is literally, rather than breaking this canister, I just pull all the film and roll it in the way that it wants to roll, because it's already rolled around the canister, rolled around the spool in the canister. Plus, the plus side of this is my hands are only touching the film side rather than the emulsion at the moment. Yeah, there we go. Still going. Turns out a roll of 36 is a lot longer than you really expect it to be. Right, and then I try and cut close to the end, but because I also want to reuse this, I don't cut too close, but sometimes if you're lucky you manage to get like 37 frames out of it. A lot of the time I end up cutting into that 37th frame. And then using the guides in the dark, which is the tricky part. And it gets even trickier if you do multiple films, because your hands get sweaty and then the bloomin' things stick. Film sticks and it's not particularly brilliant. In fact, I can already feel this is going to be a bit of a pain. It's popping out the reel. There are things you can do, so
this one's actually an ortho film, so it means it's not sensitive to red light. Which means if I'm having a real problem, I can just turn these lights off. I'll turn on the red light, the darkroom light, and then just load it visually. There is a lot of pain, and this is probably the most annoying part of developing at home. It saves a lot of hassle if you just want to send it away, but it's also more expensive, right? So if you've got money to spend on getting it developed, £5-6 a roll. If you're developing multiple rolls, there we go. That's on now. Developing multiple rolls, even if you're doing 1 or 2 rolls, or even if you're doing 1 roll a week, that's what, 5 times 52, whatever that is. Whereas, there you go, we are on. Slot the little on the spindle. Figure out where the lid is. There it is. Did I leave? Oh, I'm missing the spindle. Just open it up. Oh, it can't be in there then. That's right. I hardly use it. I'm going to agitate by turning it up and over on itself. But anyway, boom, done. There you go. So that's roughly about how much I like to leave. I can then sellotape on some extra film and put it into my loader. Run some film back into that, and yeah, the camera I mostly use doesn't read these ISO codes, so it doesn't actually matter what I use. But I also have an array of them, so I can load different types of film. But I normally use Ilford HP5, which is an ISO 400 that can be pushed or can be pulled, so it doesn't really bother me. 9 times out of 10 I forget. I can also override it if it's there. It's not a big deal. Film leaders come out. And yeah, I have no idea where the spindle is. So I can open the top here. This is how I load the chemicals into the top without the light getting to the film. And then I'll just, rather than twizzle, I will just load over the top. Oh, sorry, I'll just close the top and then agitate. I usually agitate for, in the first instance I'll do it for a minute, and then about every 10 seconds after every minute. And what did we say? We're going to do this for 9 minutes, so I'll set that up now for 9 minutes. But let's go, and I want 280 mils of water and 20 of developer. Load this with 280 mils. Roughly 280 mils. Now ideally this should be 20 degrees. To be honest, yeah, it's a little cold. Not that I know what 20 degrees actually feels like. I have a thermometer around here somewhere. Let's check on the shelf. I have a shelf of film stuff. Actually, I have a shelf of general. Oh, there it is. Oh, you have one. Thermometer. What temp are we? I'm saying 19. Well, just shy of 20. So that's all right. And then you budding mathematicians will figure out that that 280 plus 20 is 300, and luckily I have 300 mark along there, so I'm just going to pour that in until it gets to 300. There we go. Very a little bit much. Ilford, if you're watching, these things keep coming off, and they're not. I don't know if it's designed deliberately to come off, but I'm pretty sure it isn't, because it's as soon as it gets a little bit wet, it then destroys its airtight capacity, which is really frustrating, because then the developer goes off a lot quicker. That's why I end up using cling wrap, which I will do with this later. But if we could get one that's not like that, maybe something a little bit better. Minor issue, but you know. Hashtag first world problem. Agitate continuously for the first minute, and then I'll agitate every 10 seconds, so every minute after. Oh, I probably should have pressed start. There we go. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? It doesn't actually need to be that precise. And now we wait. In fact, while we're doing that, under my table here, I have things that we'll need later on, like fix and the stop solution. The fix and stop are the same solutions I actually use for when I do my developing. When I do my printing, which I do. So in the same room here, which is useful because it means I can double up on chemicals, but yeah, it just makes it easier. And so I always have supply. These can also be reused. So the developer tends to be one shot, really. There are some developers that you can use multiple times. I don't use those, so there you go. Let's spin a minute. That's in 10 seconds. I'll speed this up so that you don't have to watch the full 7 minutes, 9 minutes. What I'm going to do is put the developer into this pot just so I can discard it more easily. I don't actually have a sink in this room. There's probably like a special way to wash, but the way I do it is, if I'm not using the kitchen sink, which I'm not, I'm using the bathroom sink today, which is, the water's a little colder than I like, but sure it's fine. Literally, I do a couple of dumps. Fill it up, quick overflow. Fill it out. And then I just let it kind of flow. Fizzling around. You want to give this a good wash, because any fixative left on that dries over time will discolour your negatives and pretty much destroy them. Well, discolour them anyway, and make them harder to print from, and not quite as nice. I've had that happen with one or two of mine where I've forgotten, and in fact I've had a couple of times where I've forgotten to actually or rather the fixer has been spent, which has left a little bit of fix, and that's not actually that much of an issue. If that happens to you, all you need to do is bung it back in fix. Once you've developed and stopped the reaction, you can fix later on, and if you haven't done it properly, refix. You don't really need to see all my changes. Oh! Now, as you can see, look at that. That is fix that hasn't come off. So this is going to go back into the fix, and then hopefully that will rectify that problem. As I said, not that big a deal, it's just a pain when it happens. See, look at that. You can see all that clouding there. Don't know if you can see that. But that now has no backing left. So let's bung that back into the water. And let's keep washing. There we go. Okay, so here's the developed images. This is kind of, I guess, one of my first times actually seeing this, and it's pretty contrasty. You can see a lot of white in the sky. It was quite a bright day. Yeah, I'm a big fan of contrast in my film. Like I really like strong black, strong white. So just by looking at these, I can actually, I quite like this Ortho. I remember specifically wanting to get a couple of taxis, even got a cyclist in that. There's one here, quintessentially like a bus. And we'll see, we'll try printing and we'll see what happens. To make a contact sheet, I pretty much do it in exactly the same way that everyone does it, which is I'll lay these out onto a, so I put my paper down, I'll lay these out onto the paper, and then I'll put the a sheet of glass over the top, and then I'll do a series of steps for a test sheets to start with, and then I'll pick the right time, I guess, and then yeah, develop, and we'll see how it goes. On my sheet of paper. Now, hopefully most of these will fit. I mean, they don't always. And annoyingly, it means sometimes you have to do two. I could use a larger sheet of paper, but then I start wasting paper, and I'm not too bothered as to how pretty this looks. This isn't going to be the final print. I do have a contact sheet printer that you can use. I just seem to prefer to just lay it out. Now, before I do any real work on these, there are still things like water spots, etc. on them, so I'll probably need to clean them up. Yeah, see, unfortunately I still have 2 strips to go, and it's not going to fit on. So, no real need for super nice sprockets. So I'll just lump these on. Maybe I can fit everything on in one go. My last strips are not full strips, so. Ooh. It's not perfect, but for this, ooh, something falling down the back there. It's not perfect, but for this method, it's fine. This will do. An old package. There we go. And then I'm just going to, in 3-second increments, run along and we'll see how that works out. I'm actually going to also use, so I'll set this to f8, and I'm going to use a contrast 2 filter for these as well. So this is my filter set, contrast 2 filter. Everyone's favourite film-based photography company. And let's give this a go. Sorry, what you're looking for is just the images to be the blacks, basically your blacks to be black and your whites to be well, hopefully white, but at least your blacks to be black without darkening your highlights to a point where they're grey. So in we go. Yep. There you go, you can see that the image is already starting to come up. And this should be developed for a minute. Just shaking off the excess developer into the stop bath. And this goes in for 10 seconds or so just to stop the reaction. Essentially so that I don't exhaust my my fix. And we'll bung it in the fix. Incidentally, this is the same fix I use for my printing, so it's a little, for my developing, so it's a little bit less concentrated than you would normally have for a print. It just means I leave it in for a bit longer. That way I don't have to double up and waste on chemicals. Does mean, I guess, I exhaust it. Well, you know, I've exhausted them at the same rate that you'll be using them. Be light tight is light tight, and we'll have a look at it in the fix. Okay, so we've got what, 3 seconds, 6 seconds, 9 seconds, somewhere around the 12 seconds you can still see. So what I'm looking for really is where the sprocket holes to suddenly go quite black. So we've got 3 seconds, you can see that that's quite grey, still grey at 6 seconds, then you've got 9 seconds, 12 seconds, and it really comes out quite clearly around what's that, 15 seconds, maybe even 18. Okay, so I think I'm going to do this. I think that's quite a dark one, so maybe I'll have a look at this at about 16 seconds. Let's go between, we'll go between 15 and 18, and we'll say we'll err on the 15 side. I'll put this from the fix. Actually, I'll leave it in the fix until we've done our other print. That's normally what I do. It normally gives it enough time to fix.
dial in 16 seconds. Way too far. Grade 2 filter, we're on f8. 16 seconds, here we go.
In the dev, I just use Ilford multi-grade developer. I'm using Ilford paper, so it makes sense. You can see the developer, or in the developer, whether or not you've actually got your sheet of paper with all the developer fully covering at the same time, as it goes that weird. Probably. Where parts of it develops more than others at any time. Okay. Yeah. I'm quite liking the look of that Ortho film. So where did the one with the taxi go? Ah, here we go. Sorry, right in front of me, frame 16. So that's quite nice. We could certainly crop up there. Blown highlight here, but we could try and bring that back, I guess, with a bit of burning in. And then we had the one with the bus. Oh, I quite like the one with the bus.
And all I'm doing at the moment is checking for, yeah, see, so what we want to do was we're going to change height, and I'm just checking I'm not even checking for the focus just yet. I'm just checking to see what the sliders look like. So I should be able to slide each of these in. We're just going to have a quick look at the focus. So what we need to do is grab our focus finder. I do have a favourite focus finder, but that was probably what fell down earlier. But let's have a look. What you're doing here is actually focusing on the grain rather than anything else. You're not interested in whether or not the image itself is in focus. You're interested in whether the grain is in focus. Should then mean that the image itself is in focus. So let's turn that off, and we will get some test strips. The test strips allow us then to not have to waste too much paper, to be able to determine the best exposure on the enlarger for this image. Now, considering the other one was about 16 seconds, although that's larger at a different head, I think I will start with 5-second increments. I'm going to be using the same type of paper but a slightly larger piece, which is a 9.5 by 12 inches, and it's still Ilford multigrade and it's still in pearl. I prefer to work at these larger sizes. There's a test strip ready to go. Actually, I realised this is actually around the wrong way. So let's bring my image back up. We'll move this back around the right way.
more for a reference for me, so I know where I can put my insert, which I'll show you in a minute. About there. Now let's put the test strip in. Perfect. And so let's try this at 5-second increments at f8. Okay, so this is now my first full print. Let's So I'll slot this in under the masking frame. Now I learned this trick from the YouTube channel Shoot Film Like a Boss. I highly recommend you guys go watch his channel, he's great. Something heavy around the outside so that that doesn't move. In fact, what I'm also going to do is put the red safe light filter over this new piece of paper, and I'm going to increase the f-stop to the aperture to f3.5 so I can see it. And I'm just going to check my exposure, not exposure, sorry, my focus. Which had moved. Okay. I'll move this back to f8. I'll move the filter ring back in place. What are we on? Grade. So we have grade 0 and we have grade 5. I like to print the grade 0 first. So grade 0 goes on for 26 seconds. I may even go, let's go with 30 seconds. Swap over to the grade 5 filter, and for the grade 5 I'm going to go very slightly under 20 seconds, just to compensate for the fact that I went up quite a bit with the grade 0. Okay, perfect. And another trick that I learned from the Shoot Film Like a Boss is if you then keep the insert, you can create a beautiful black border that helps to really set off your images, especially if you've got something like mine is, where there's a black sky, for example, a white sky, for example. This just sort of allows you to really frame within your frame, as it were. I've also made a little rebate so that on the top right hand corner of all my images, so I know each image which one is mine, and it's automatically easy to recognize one of my images. Oop. There we go, we'll just flood this area with light. Doesn't need too much, very long. Now I'll remove the card, remove the image. Now let's have a look. Put the whole image in face down first, and we'll give it a minute. Let everything the image over. Look at that. Look at I'm liking that. And now we're in the fix. So let's turn the light on and have a look. Oh yeah, there we go. It's much brighter. Nice contrast. Oh, I'm happy with that. As a first print, as a first ortho print, before seeing what I can do and pull everything out, I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay, that's it. So I showed you how I created a contact sheet. This is the test strip for the contact sheet. All the way through to my initial contact sheet. This is going to stay in a folder with the negatives. Here's the final print. So, although I used a split grading method, that doesn't mean that I don't have to dodge and burn. And just looking at some of this, I think I would probably want to maybe lighten up just a little bit down here and maybe darken this slightly more. The building slightly more. I think, look, for a first pass and as a base image, I quite like it. I really like the silvery tones that I'm getting from the Ortho, and it's definitely a film that I think I'm gonna shoot again. Catch you next time.